Very, very excited. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time. Have with us the host of the Field Op Pop podcast, which if you haven't checked it out, you're going to want to after this and subscribe. Pacho Carrera, he's a retired veteran, and I'm just going to get right into it. Just for fun, let's do a radio check. How do you read me? Over?
Leave it, Charlie. Leave
Yeah,
it,
leave it,
Charlie.
Charlie. Yeah, yeah.
Get some.
So, so let me ask you this, Chief. What was the origin story for your selection? I'm really curious about the branch, the job, and the rank. I don't think a lot of our listeners actually know how specified and what's involved to become a chief warrant officer. So walk us through the background of why you chose the branch and all the things that followed.
Oh, hey, thanks. First off, man, thanks so much for having me on the show. It's an honor and a true pleasure to be here, sharing a little bit of club soda, being sober for 10 years now
Yeah, there you
with a
go.
fellow veteran, and just about to chew the fat around some MRE boxes. Just talk a little bit of trash and who you're with and where you're from. So thanks for
Oh, my
watching. I
pleasure.
appreciate it. Thanks for
Yeah,
your
my
service, brother.
honor. Yeah.
Well, I'm an immigrant myself. I came to this great nation of ours back in the mid '80s. So when Ronnie Reagan was in office, times where not only America but the rest of the world was kind of on pins and needles because everybody was afraid of, hey, the next World War, all that stuff.
Right.
So my first experience, believe it or not, with the Marine Corps, I guess you could say, I looked at all the branches. Um, Colombia, where I was born and raised in Colombia. So, during those times, and we can sit here and talk negative, and believe me, I've heard it all. However, there was some really hard, trying times in that country. And Pablo Escobar at the time had uh, working along with us, the guerrillas, the M19, the FARC, and so on and so forth. Anyways, they tried to take over the parliament. So it was a huge like showdown.
Sure.
Marine Corps actually got involved because it was since it's in capital in Bogota. Um, all this stuff is going on. So the embassy is there as well. Marines were called to help out. It was like a conflict. It was, it's something that it was a blur, in time. However, because I was already here in Florida, and obviously, Miami is like the next Colombia, I guess you could say. It's a huge hub for South America.
Sure.
We got to see that live on TV. So, like, holy cow. And then when I went back, part of when we became residents, we had to go back to the embassy. And obviously, Marines are the ones who guard the embassy, very professional. I was like, man, who are these dudes? So, moving time forward,
Hmm.
I was in the middle of high school. So I was like, man, who are these dudes in blues? And obviously seeing the commercials, so on and so forth. One of my best friends at the time, he's 2 years younger than I am because I was held back a grade back because I didn't know English. So that's part of the deal too when I came to so because of that, so we're in the same grade. So we're both seniors. Like, dude, I just joined the Marine Corps. I'm like, the Marine Corps, who are those guys? And he showed me, I'm like, oh man, yeah, I know who I've seen them. So I was like, okay, let me think about it. And so it was three of us. So I told Ken, I'm like, dude, freaking DJ joined the Marine Corps. And he's like, what? So yeah. And then he's like, well, what is that? So Heartbreak Ridge, A Few Good Men. I mean,
Yeah.
that just drove the
Yeah.
several nails in the coffin's decision. And we're like, oh man, we're gonna be, the next, we're gonna save the world. And obviously we drank the Kool-Aid and we joined. We joined the Marine Corps. I love motorcycles. It's been a tremendous passion of mine since I was a kid. Obviously, I grew up in a farm in Colombia, and being on two wheels, being on something, riding, it's kind of natural. So I wanted to be. So I told the recruiter, I just want to work on motorcycles, blah blah. And man, that dude just zzz, through the freaking. Oh yeah, bro, I got you. Motor T. You could be a mechanic, blah, blah. And my buddy, because we went on the buddy program, the one who came in first, the guy who's younger, he had already think he had gone. Oh, he went weather observer because the dude, he's really smart. Anyway, so he took us in. Obviously, it kind of helped him to get his promotion. Ken and I went in second. And yeah, so and Ken is like, hey man, I'm just here with him. So he got admin. So I thought I was gonna be working on motorcycles. That was the whole thing. But you know, as we're in boot camp, and back then we before they had what they call the crucible now, in the Marine Corps, it was we had something similar, and then we went to this called Marine Combat Training post boot camp, and then it's which is think of it as a water a more the course light of infantry school, which is 30 days, 30 days of that. And so in one of the moments we got to see some videos about am trackers. I think you guys call them strikers
Yeah, yeah.
in the army. And so anyway, so I was like, dude, man, I'm telling Ken, I'm like, man, screw Motor T, and man, stop being an admin. He's like, let's go be ant trackers, let's be infantry.
Yeah.
And Ken is like, whoa, calm down, dude. Let's just get to. Anyways, whatever. It was great. So all in all, I mean, it was great. I did my 4 years. And then I got out. I would end up being Model T. By the way, when I got to the fleet, the Hondas, the 250s were being phased out. I think that when I got there, a couple of Marines were doing wheelies out in the back in the motor pool, got in trouble, and that was kind of like pretty much the nail on the coffin for that program. And they started phasing them out. And so they were in my motorcycle mechanic school.
Yeah.
I did come back full circle many, many years later as I think a young senior sergeant. I think I was already selected for being an E6 staff sergeant, where I did go back to Camp Lejeune and did work on the motorcycles, on the Yamahas, on the 650s, I believe. And I did work on them. So I did come full circle. But yeah, man, I was a mechanic. I started out in a mechanic, and then obviously later on joined the warrant officer program. And after 5 years of trying, I got selected for that shit.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
think a
dude.
lot of folks know about the chief. We in the Army we always say I spent some time with the engineer unit, and then later I spent some time with an infantry unit. And, and they'd always say, well, the chiefs, those are the ones that actually read books. You know, they're the ones that actually have to go to school and focus and study and pass tests.
Yeah, and in the Marine Corps, back in my time, and I said because I know things have changed and they were somewhat changing. The warrant officer ranks were known as the lieutenant chewers, basically. I
Yeah,
mean, we ate lieutenants alive,
yeah, yeah.
and captains and some majors along the way. So because of that, lieutenants feared us. And the crazy thing is that when we go, to we don't go through the whole officer candidate school, their boot OCS. We go to the basic school, TBS, which is kind of like water the Coors Light infantry officer school of if you're not going to be an infantry officer.
Right.
So but
Yeah,
we do go to that school. So the lieutenants, there was something like, man, stay away from these guys
yeah, yeah.
when this part of the school during this time frame, stay away from them because they will eat you alive. So those kids would avoid us like the friggin' plague. But
Well, it's
that
great.
was in the
It's great that you were enlisted in NCO first. That's also not
yeah
as common, because seriously, the chiefs that I came across in my time, it was always like they were the book source of everything. They were the experts in the field of their
yeah
field.
yeah
And if there was a question, they say, "Yeah, go talk to the chief." All
yeah
the
go yeah
NCOs enlisted for the most part revere the. In my day, we used to call him the old man, because it would
yeah yeah
literally be one of the oldest people in the unit, but they knew everything, top of their head. But you're right. Now that you said that, it makes me think about how some of the lower ranking lieutenants would avoid them.
Yeah, dude. And by the way, I want to, what you said right there, I want to, in regards to subject matter experts, I want to use that term very loosely because there were some guys, not only my community, but in other communities that I'm like, dude, you are a blooming onion, bro. How the, how the heck did you? I'm like, man, were they scraping the barrel on your MOS? I mean, so I use that term very loosely, but
Yeah.
yeah, to your point, yeah, they were known as that sounding because basically I was that sounding board to that commander,
Right.
being in regards to my specialty field, which is transportation, logistics, and maintenance. Not so much some depending on where you were at, you absorb also engineer equipment and that maintenance cycle as well. However, yeah, we were that sounding board to that commander, and so we were privy to talking a certain way, and and being a little bit more open and forward with that commander, because basically we were the no BS type of individual. So yeah, I mean, we were privy to that, and I was not one to take advantage of it. I mean, I pushed the boundaries. I knew when. However, I didn't over exceed them because at the end of the day, I know that commander is the one that's on the hot seat. So I backed him whether I liked it or not. I back in front of everybody. I mean, I had that dude's back
Oh,
or
sure.
that
Yeah,
commander's
yeah.
back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you got to support the cadre or it falls apart after that.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm just curious in your time because it really is interesting to me that you went enlisted NCO and then chief. So you obviously were a leader, but you had a lot of leaders in the mix there. Is there one in particular, or maybe just a lesson that you picked up that just kind of stuck with you, and even to this day you reflect upon something that you got that you probably wouldn't have learned if it wasn't for your time in the service?
Sit here and just I was always lucky and blessed to be surrounded by good leaders and influencers, I guess you can say, that helped and shaped and molded who I am and who I became as a warrant officer, or even as a just as that as my me as the leader myself, whether without having to wear bars. I can remember individual. I'll name some. Captain Radaman. This dude was a must. I mean, he was such a Mustang. That's a guy or gal that goes from enlisted to warrant, and then some transition to the limited duty officer ranks.
Yeah.
So those are Mustangs. I mean, and this dude was, I mean, he was known and revered and feared at the same time. But I mean, he was an expert when it came to transportation and logistics. I mean, that guy, everybody feared him, and because I don't know what it was about me that I was so respectful when I met the man that he was kind, he was firm, kind and fair with me, and so I took a lot of good things with him, of him that I took with me. I can also tell you that you know along the way, I'm Captain Livingston, and I used to joke with him like, "Hey, sir, do you know? Have you heard of the poem of Jonathan Livingston Seagull?" And he's like, "Oh man," he was a young, we were I think about the same age. However, I remember that that from this that was a I'm dating myself, but I was I was still very young in the '70s. But I remember that having to listen to that and Neil Diamond did the music for that
Right,
poem and
right.
stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, guys like him, Scott Gilman, we started out as enlisted, he became a warrant officer all the way to the five ranks later on, and he mentored and groomed me to be, I mean, so, a guy, like, shoot, I'm having kind of somewhat of an epiphany right now. When somebody sees something in you that you didn't see in yourself, when on my fifth year, and I was already in recruiting duty, out to be a recruiter and going through school and Scott calls me from Afghanistan and he's like, "Hey man, have you put in a package?" And at that time, now he was an officer. I was like, "Hey sir, what's going on?" He always called me Hoochie. Uh, he called me Hoochie Mama. That was his nickname for me. And so he's like, "Hey Hoochie, did you put in your package?" I'm like, "Sir, where are you calling from? Aren't you not?" He's like, "Yeah, He's like, "Hey, did you put in your package?" I'm like, "No, no, sir. Hey, it's a 5 times. They can keep it. Blah blah blah." He's like, "Hey, you're gonna put in a package, and I better see that on the board here coming up at the end of the year." So my XO call went out from my previous command and forced, or he stimulated me to put in a package
Yeah.
fasted on purpose. Lo and behold, man, that's the year I got selected, and I was, already a recruiter.
Yeah.
So when people see, sometimes you don't see it, or because life has, and I talked about this in my podcast this week and last week, is that sometimes we are almost 3 feet from our goal, and that, which by the way, I never allowed that to happen again. However, from meeting that goal or striking rich, your riches, whatever that may be in your life, sometimes we because we don't see it, we just see the present and not the future that we gave up. And I'm glad that he pushed me, and these other individuals, made a mark on me, good, even the bad ones, that it made me who I am today. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, that's great. And the fact that he took time while being overseas just to call you to encourage you.
Bro.
I'm sure he had other, family or whatnot that, back in those days, you're standing in line to make a call and all that.
Yeah, on the green phones, dog. I
Yeah,
mean, these
yeah.
are like over, like
Yeah,
over.
for our listening audience that's under 30, let me explain what phones are. Yeah, but oh my
No
gosh,
kidding.
that's awesome that he did that. That's great.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So then when did you start to see the light as far as like, okay, I'm gonna wrap up this time of the service? What was your plan? Did you have a plan? What was the transition like once that era took place there?
Dude, that is a really good and amazing question. We're because I'm very transparent when I talk about things on my show. So around that time frame, I was going through, just some internal stuff. Excuse me. Not only, you know, something within my, I guess, within my soul, so to speak, mentally too, where, I was in a really dark time in my life. I was in a marriage, and again, I'm not putting the blame on this, just the situation and the environment as a whole,
Sure,
the command. I was just going down this rabbit hole, and this where I felt myself not coming out of. And I was depressed, and basically, obviously, I didn't know why. So, obviously, it's PTSD as we call it now. I mean, but back then I didn't know. I mean, I once snapped on a lieutenant, and I did became my what I dreaded, and I did not want to be at all, was that guy chewing that lieutenant's ass out for whatever reason, whether warranted or not. And so I went to a meeting. That was one incident, and I had other incidents where on the street I was blacking out, where I almost, I don't know, my kid's mom at the time, 105 pounds wet. Yeah, she stopped me from, and I can still barely remember the incidents where all I want to do is just grab this dude's face and smash it on the concrete. I was having blackouts, anger blackouts like that, and several happened. Anyways, I had gone to a meeting where for my commander, I was the regimental motor transport officer at 11th Marines in Camp Pendleton, and the awesome Steve Lazuski, who's General Lazuski now. We had a meeting, and and all these battalion officers just BSing the guy, and that was just for me the camel that broke its back. And so I mean, I interjected and did my thing, but I just came back, and for whatever reason, I was in my office. I completely broke down. I couldn't stop crying for whatever reason. I just wanted to be everything to just go quiet, and I just wanted peace. I had already thought about suicide, and I had already somewhat of a plan. But that day, pretty much, that was it. And my plan was, I was gonna get on my bike. I was gonna go to the armory. I already had some rounds, and I was gonna check out my 9 mil, and I was just gonna go because if anybody's familiar with Camp Pendleton, Hogan's area has got a lot of ranges nearby. So I was gonna go to one of the pistol ranges down, nearby, and just basically just pull trigger, and basically just quiet. Something in me, maybe this is the part, where those that actually want to ask for help. So I picked up the phone and I called Scott Gilman, the guy who from Afghanistan, and he was up at at Main Side, Camp Pendleton, and we call it the Division White House. So he was the regiment, the Division Motor Transport Officer. He was a senior, and I was just crying, and he's like, "Whoa!" He's like, It's like, dude, what's wrong? I'm like, I just want quiet, Scott. I'm tired. I'm really, really tired. I'm exhausted, dude. I can't keep doing this. And, you know, I just want peace. And he's like, dude, hey man, hey, just do me a favor. Just hang out with me. Just let me go talk to you. Just give me a few minutes. This dude made it from Mainside to Pogus. It seemed like in 10 minutes
Wow.
because it's at least
Yeah.
a 20-minute drive. 25. I mean, it's this dude must have been going Mach 5 through that road,
Yeah.
all the way from over there. And he showed up in my office, and I remember I was just sitting like this, and he came in very nonchalant, not a very like, say, hey, he was like, hey, Hooch, what's going, what you got going? And I was like, dude, I'm exhausted. I'm tired, Scott. I just one piece. Dude. I no, I guess I get it. I said, where was that? I just go take a drive. So I got in his truck, and he took me to the mental health unit, which at the time was still at by the old Naval Hospital in Lake O'Neill in Camp Pendleton. And we went to mental health, and I just completely just where the lady, the doctor, we started talking, and there for a while. He waited for me the whole time, and just and then they started going. It's like, hey, I think maybe we should just put you on these meds for right now, and blah blah blah. The hardest thing though is that I know as a soldier, as a a professional of combat, I guess that's what we all are, right? We identify, especially in the Marine Corps, is that, man, this is my rifle, this is my gun, you know what I'm saying? This is my rifle. There are many like it. There,
Yeah.
all that stuff. The hardest thing what hit me the hardest was when she said, "Hey, I need your weapons card."
Yeah.
That right there, remember when Leonidas is standing right before King Xerxes, and and the guy's narrating his shield is heavy, and he drops his shield, and that scene right there resonates with me because that was me, where I was just broken, I was just exhausted, and having to surrender then was the hard. But all in all, I'm glad that all those things happened because that right there was what pretty much, hey, I think it's time to hang things up and and start seek elsewhere. So that was my path to getting better. So from there, I mean, I started trying, I started going getting better, and again, General Lazuski, fantastic dude. Shout out to him. Told me, hey Frank, and he used to call me Frank. Hey Frank, you got a blank check with me. Go get better, but please don't harm yourself. And that's what I did. So I was I started venturing out of the military and become a civilian now with long hair and earrings,
Yeah,
baby.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's incredible that he was that much of a friend, mentor, leader, and frankly, the exact embodiment of what it is to be a Marine, always faithful. I mean,
Yeah,
you were very blessed to have him as part of your journey.
yeah, dude.
So, okay, so now the timeline is you've left the Marine Corps, like you said, long hair, right? Grow it out. What was next for you? What was work, travel, chill? What was the transition, and then how did you get to where you are today?
So remember about coming full circle, motorcycle, blah blah
Yeah, yeah,
blah. So along the way, all those years, the Marine Corps implemented the motorcycle safety program through the Motorcycle Safety Foundation because a lot of accidents. So, I got licensed as a motorcycle coach. So I would do that on the weekends and help out, aboard the bays, the commands, and blah blah. So what I wanted to do is, hey, I want to get back, I want to have fun now and do fun things, me things. So I thought I was going to get into the motorcycle industry. And I did teach for a government contract at the time aboard Camp Pendleton. However, along the way, they lost the contract. So there goes that. I did apply to KTM, which I used to live in Temecula area. KTM and Husqvarna has got one of their biggest factories right there.
sure.
So one of my neighbors, he used to coach their dirt bike team. So I thought I had to meet, I forgot the guy's name. He's a professional at several motorcycle events held at the Marine Corps base. So I thought, hey, a motorcycle. Woo. Well, that wasn't the case. So I got into safety. So I ran into an old sergeant major of mine when I was enlisted, and he's like, hey, man, if you really want to get in the industry, you should check this OSHA. We're hiring, and I had already gotten my OSHA 10 hour and all that stuff. And I fell in love with the OSHA with safety, where I changed my MBA to and pursued occupational safety and health degree, master's, and so I went safety basically after that, and it was great. I mean, it's been great. It did good for me, so much so that I mean, I got to on this last stint that where I was working doing a safety project in the Middle East in Qatar for an American company, and it's been pretty good. But yeah, so I did safety. I mean, I got to see construction. I got to work inside military installations, so general industry, construction, all that stuff. And yeah, it's been pretty fun. And I did really well at it, and so much so that I got a degree in the field. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's awesome. And then one day you just woke up and said, I'm going to have this awesome podcast called The Field Op. How did that
dude.
come about?
So we all get involved with work, especially those of us who would battle with our demons, because it's easier. And studies have shown that, hey, you went to combat, something happened, ran over, Humvee ran over landmine, things happen. It's much for those individuals who have those physical wounds. There's still psychological trauma, not to take away from that situation, but the cause and effect is, okay, hey, I lost this because of X, Y. So it's much easier. Studies have shown that it's much easier for them to deal with those things rather than those of us who come back and we look okay, but in here we got a lot of things going on. So at that time, we get it. So we avoid things and we dive into work and we are excelling at it. Woo! Hey, super safety guy, whatever.
Right.
Because all we're doing is like, hey, there's that demon saying, hey, like Beetlejuice, hey, how you doing?
Yep.
Right here, and you're like, hey, dude, I don't want to deal with you. But at some point, your body's gonna say, hey, we got this monster here that you've been avoiding all these years. Yeah, you got good and better for some time when you retired in 2014, but I was dealing with some monsters at the time, and so my fiance, at the time, she's like, although her ex-husband was in the military, he didn't, he was not his non-combat, none of that stuff. But she's like, oh man, I got this dude. I'm familiar with somewhat. I've heard about PTSD, but so she got me got me connected with some resources. That shout out to Warrior Built and Chief Aaron Siebert of the Combat Vet Vision. So he had his own podcast. Obviously, I started doing the therapy groups, and he had this podcast called Combat Vet Vision. And he's like, dude, you should come on the show. I think you got a great story because of things that happen, and I think you'll be good, a good show. Excuse me. So we were talking, and it was a great show. His is more serious, by the way. Dude was blown up twice, got shrapnel all over his body, declared dead twice. I mean, wow. Yeah, amazing dude. I will definitely put you in touch with him. He's got a great story. Anyways, so I was on there talking about my story first, then because I'm all about helping veterans and paying it back and paying it forward. I started talking also about, hey, veterans, another great industry for you to get into, and passing knowledge about safety, how to get into it, doing OSHA 10 classes for free through a veteran transition support, which is another nonprofit. So, and I kept telling the I'm like, dude, what if we come up with a podcast where we're just two service members, two dudes just talking, mad trash, like we were sitting around MREs, man, it would be fun. It would be hilarious. He's like, yeah, that would be pretty cool. However, and he's my man is super busy. So I get it why he's like, man, not. He kind of passed on it uh, for that reason.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was like, I kind of put on the back burner, went to the Middle East to do this government contract. And by the way, if you're having a lot of PTSD issues or you're not in the right place, having to go work in the same
In the
environment
sandbox, yeah.
with some of this, with the people that you can in another area that were your combatants, not a good combination. Don't freaking recommend
In
it.
hindsight, you might have been going there a little bit sooner than you were ready.
Yeah, yeah, man. But I needed something, and yeah, I was, we go through those cycles, and my wife is again at the time she's like, oh man, it's happening again. 'Cause she can actually foretell before I even notice it. I mean, that's how well she knows. So she's like, hey, didn't you ever think about it? I thought you were talking about doing a YouTube or something. Aaron was in the Middle East. He was back here. So he was super busy. And I was like, hey, and I found out who he does his podcast through, which is Brian Colburn at sitchradio.com. So I contacted him and say, hey, Brian, my name is Pacho. I think we've met a couple of times. And I pitched it at him and said, hey, look, I got this idea. I think it would be great. What do you think? And he's like, hell. And he's being a Marine himself. He's like, hell yes, 100%. Let's do it. He goes, here. So he sent me all the templates. He goes, here's what to do. He goes, I need you to develop at least 13 shows that we can put in the can because statistically, all podcasts tend to die by the 13th show. And I was like, "Oorah, get some." So I started working on that, and it was the best freaking thing that I could ever happen. It gave me a voice. It gave me It's like I was able to share my story. And if I'm having you can hear some some of my shows. I mean, if I'm having something, you'll be able to tell, just by looking at me and by what I'm saying. I mean, I've cried. But yeah, so that was the journey, dude. And here I am, 136 shows later, and
Wow,
it's like,
that's
yeah,
incredible.
dude. Yeah, man. I've
Yeah,
been blessed.
yeah,
I feel lucky.
yeah. Well, I've been enjoying it, and I told you before we were talking offline. I was just sitting there listening, and you're opening with well, folks, you can check it out for yourself. But for those of us that serve that's listening, the one opening you use with hey, you got Firewatch, the little whisper there. I'd love to
Yeah,
know what made you think of that because the second I heard it, I kid you not, it's funny, but it immediately put me right back into basic training. Like my mind
dude.
was because everyone in the service that's listening to this knows exactly what those words mean.
It's remember the movie Dumb and Dumber back in the day? What's
Oh
the
yeah,
most annoying sound in the world?
yeah,
And that
yeah,
bit that Jim Carrey goes, right?
right.
So for any service member, what's the most annoying sound in the world at 3:30 in the morning? You know what I'm saying? I want to get, I wish I could take own that. However, I gotta get Brian Colburn, sitchradio.com.
Yeah,
He so we were, when we were and say, hey, how we're gonna do the opening, blah blah. So I just developed a little sketch. Again, we're doing everything through WhatsApp and talking back and forth. And I was like, hey, I say I did the whole, hey, this is Pacho, Roger, Lima Charlie, blah blah. And so we're going back. So I wrote the script and I said, hey, how about if in the background we have some tanks or some, some helos, blah blah. So he put the overlay of that on this, and we both did the soundtrack. We recorded. Actually, I just did my part, and then he pieced it all together, which came out amazing. So that was the initial intro for quite some time.
yeah.
Along the way, he's like, "Hey, brother," because he's got this raspy voice. "Hey, brother, what you got?" I'm like, "Hey, man, I took some liberties with the intro." This is like about a year or some change later. He's like, "Man, I took some liberties with the intro. I hope you like it." He didn't tell me what it was. Oh my God, dude. When I heard that, and even to this day, when we hear that intro, and I'm giggling, and I'm really holding it because obviously the mic is hot. So but every time I giggle my ass off because it's like each and every freaking time, man. I can remember just being utterly uncomfortable in my freaking sleeping bag out on the out on the field, and somebody like, it's like, so you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's why I love it. And your show
Yeah,
is so
dog.
you're so relatable to the people that served. People pick up things, they learn things, maybe if they're not familiar with, not just the military in general, but specifically the Marine Corps and your particular field. So I love that. But you add some humor to it, and that makes you more relatable. Like you said, you're transparent. I mean, I just see in the comments a lot of positive stuff. So I think what you're doing is
Yeah.
fantastic. What can our listeners do to support you? Why don't you go ahead and don't be bashful, because everyone listening, of course, loves the veteran community. A lot of them are in the veteran and family of the military community. What can we do to show you some love and support there?
Hey, I would love for you go to the field up. You can look me up on Facebook. It airs um every Thursday at 6 p.m. I do a live version of it, and then it gets uploaded on YouTube. So you can find it on podcasts or on pages at the field up on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. The Instagram, I created a new channel called the Headshed because I'm no longer in the field up. In the field up is very raw, very obviously unscripted. And we a lot of F-bombs sometimes get dropped depending on who the guest is and the vibe of the show.
Sure.
However, hey, that's how we talk though. I
Yep.
mean, that is literally it's not that we're bad. We just use, especially the F word, it's used as an adjective. You know what I'm saying? Um, so I did so and on YouTube, so you can find the field op on YouTube as well. You can't miss the logo because it's a green field desk. It's got a guide on in the back, and then it's got two mics and the canteen cups on there. You can't miss it. So you and then on Instagram you can find me as the Headshed 2024. This channel that I developed, and even on YouTube, I'm developing a more administrative channel where I start talking now on Veterans Group Life Insurance versus SGLI while you're in. I am securities licensed. I am which I left my corporate job now, and I'm doing through a company called amazing company called Primerica, and we help veterans, and so I focus mainly on veterans and military families. So that channel, yes, yeah, I promote obviously what I do, and hopefully people want to some of my services. But I on that channel now I'm talking things that we as service members didn't know, like, hey, what is really is single group life insurance, and why do I have to put into this stuff? We're talking. It's like, hey, why is it good to have a beneficiary on your survivor benefit plan when you retire? So we talk about those admin things that we didn't know, and instead of just our sergeant telling me, hey, because I freaking told you so, Marine, or hey, soldier, you better freaking put it into your GI Bill. Well, what's the reason? So I developed that channel to answer all those questions in service and post service, and what are the benefits, and hey, how to use your TSP, your thrift savings plan correctly. What can you do? Again, I don't give any recommendations. I just want to throw that out there. Obviously, because then FINRA would have us
Oh,
give it.
sure, sure.
You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
think you're a fiduciary yourself.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I know the routine there. Yeah, but you're helping people, and like you said,
Yeah,
a lot of people in the service, that's the last thing on anyone's mind, especially when you're young, especially before you're
yeah,
married and you
dude.
have kids or whatever. And then even if you do go through that, unfortunately in our culture, I guess our military community, a lot of folks go through life changes, right? New children being born or
Yeah,
potentially a marriage ending, and they don't think about that stuff at all. So it's good that you're putting that out there. And again, once again, you're doing things in a very approachable and humorous way, and that's helping. I got to say a quote that I heard from this was on a friend of mine's radio program, Chris Kunkel, who's a Marine, by the way.
hoorah.
He interviewed James Baker's, excuse me, Bradley's misspoke there. Bradley's uh, son from Iwo Jima, the author of Flag of Our Fathers.
Oh, wow.
And they were talking about on the radio, they were talking about the controversies between the different photos, the multiple photos of the Iwo Jima, which I'm
Yeah, yeah.
familiar with that
The raising
story.
of the flag. Yeah.
Yeah, so he clarified the whole thing and he said, look, it's just simple. The Marines are the best in the world at fighting and winning wars, but they don't understand paperwork.
Yeah. No, I
They're
mean,
really bad at paperwork. So I love that you're putting it in there because it's just that's the nature of a service member, especially when they're young. They don't think about
yeah.
those things.
So my whole purpose as a whole, man, was talk about, share my, like Aaron Siebert, Chief Siebert, he says, hey, by me sharing my story, I get to hopefully help somebody else. But it's also therapy at the same time, self-therapy. And by the way, I'm still plugged in. I still see, my wizard, who every other week we have our, our Zoom sesh, and he tunes me up and all that good stuff. Nonetheless, it's just, these are things that when I became a veteran, that as I was transitioning, I'm like, God, geez, why isn't this information being, shared? And why do we have to go through these hurdles and obstacles going through the VA and all this, and retiring, or or transition out of your first, second, or third enlistment, whatever. That was my point, basically, and share that information. We talk about VA benefits and claims, so that was the whole purpose, and it still is. I mean, it still is. I mean, I do it for free. Sitch Radio, because they had to change their platforms. We are changing the show, so I will say that I will work on bringing back the "Hey, you got Firewatch" and all those overlays on the show as I'm figuring things out. But we'll partner up again. It's just, obviously we had to, because I pay. This is all paid for by me. So
Right.
if people want to help, when on the Facebook, donate stars, whatever, because it's all just going back to the show. I mean, nothing, absolutely nothing. I don't gain any monetary out of it. If anything, so that way I could keep working with Brian Colburn, who's been, an amazing individual, and Aaron Siebert. So, yeah, and check out sitchradio.com. Many other podcasts there as well that will take your fancy. Yes, I like to say my intro. Yeah, dude.
That's awesome. And folks, we'll have links to everything Pacho was talking about today on our site. If you missed any of the links, just go to Lima Charlie Show. His biography is there. Recording of this podcast, you can in the radio broadcast, you can find it on YouTube and share it with your network and get his story out there. And you can find everything and everyone he's talking about today. So, well, this was fun. I really enjoyed it. I appreciate the extra time. And
Yeah, me too, man.
I do like to ask one fun question at the end. It's just kind of a fun little time travel thing.
Hit me.
Yeah, yeah. So if you
Aye, sir. I'm standing in the position of attention.
if you could go back in time right now, like just for a minute, and the only thing you could do is go back and talk to your younger self, what would be the guidance, warnings, advice, encouragement, whatever? What would you say to that young man who was about to embark on this journey? This before he did the buddy program, which that's fantastic. It reminds me of the movie Stripes when friends join together. But
Bro,
what?
we pay dearly for that in boot camp. My buddy and let me get the two buddies,
Yeah, yeah.
and I ended up working for that drill instructor at my first command. He was my shot chief. I pay for that too. Then,
That's awesome. Well,
yeah,
if you could go back for a minute or less with your younger self, what would you say? What would be that?
I guess financially, hey, invest in yourself. Participate, when the TSP came around, instead of just putting it to the side, honestly, I should have participate and invest in you, because everything else in my career I would never change. The good, the bad, and the ugly. I guess on the sentimental side, I wish I would have made a little bit more of an effort to come back home and periodically spend time with my dad. My dad later on in life ended up tragically passing away. So I wish I would have gone back home a couple more times, just to be with the old man that much more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
So not to end it in a dark,
No, no.
in
Hey,
a dark.
this is why we share our stories. We
Pacho's got daddy issues.
yeah, yeah. We all share our stories, and this is what I enjoy about my fun little role here is I've been doing this for a few years now, and I've never heard two veterans answer the same question the same way because that just shows how unique we are. Yeah, we fall
Yeah,
in line and we can be on a team and we can get the mission and the work done together because we understand the goal and the objective. But we're all individuals. We have our own, the things that make us unique. And that's what I love
yeah,
about this. And that's what makes me so proud to have served our country because I don't think enough people realize what it takes to pull off the work that the military does every day. And yet you need people from all walks of life. You need that diverse background of knowledge, of experiences, because without the unique abilities, you don't come up with the creative solutions we find when we need to have them.
no, you're 100% right. And it doesn't matter what, because at the end of the day, it's one team, same fight.
Yep.
Yeah, one team, same fight, as
Yep.
Chief Warren Officer DeLuca would say. And what do I mean by that, dude? Is that right or wrong? I mean, you and me, we briefly met, through emails and such. But right now, we've been talking like you and me have known each other
20
for a
years. Yeah.
freaking, yeah, for a
Yeah.
freaking lifetime. Like, I'm like, man, these two are like having homies, and your kids, my kids, grew up. But that's the amazing thing about when those of us who had the privilege to serve this great nation of ours and wear a pair of combat boots. Doesn't matter what branch, doesn't matter whatever. Is that we get one another. We may talk trash about one another all the time, but let something happen at a bar where there's two or three veterans who like, yo, you in the army? Yo, is that guy bothering you? Okay, boom, hey, we got a mini fire team right there. I'm telling you, we'll shut that place down. You
QRF
know what I'm
has
saying?
arrived. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, we got it. So
Oh, that's
yeah,
awesome.
100%, dude.
All right. Well, thanks so much, folks. This has been another fantastic talk. Thanks to my guest, Paco Carrera. There's the Field Op podcast and everything else he's doing. Check him out. Show him some love. Show him some support.
Yeah,
And thank you for your time. Thank you for your service. And more importantly, now I'm so grateful that I'm so grateful you got to a place where you can focus on continuing to serve others, but also taking care of yourself. I'm very proud of you for doing that.
thanks, brother. Appreciate it. It's been a pleasure and an honor to be in your amazing show. Thank you for what you do, and keep doing it, man. Because I think you and all those of us who use these platforms to pass this information, dude. I think we're in a mission, on a crusade to help one another. Because hey, just like I say on my podcast, while those show chef, what's the dude, the big buff dude, chef, he's the chef
Oh,
for
the
the White House.
22, I forget how many
Yeah,
push-ups a day he does. Yeah.
now Chef Rush,
Yeah.
while he's doing the 22 push-ups a day and all these other things in name of veteran suicide. At the end of the day, dude, it's not going to bring that life back. So we need to be that sounding board and pass that information to let us be, whether they reach out to you, they reach out to me or whoever. Because let me be that last phone call. Let us be that last phone call. Don't take your life, dude. Crap. I almost crappy times do only last but a period. The hard part is getting through that time frame. But this too shall pass. So thanks for what you do, man, and thanks for allowing me to be here
Right,
today.
right back at you. We have an obligation to take our blessings and share them and give people a chance to share their stories because that's ultimately what it's about. And you spent some time as a recruiter. You don't need me to tell you this,
Yeah,
but if we don't explain to people that aren't familiar with the military, the good, the bad, the ugly, and
yeah,
the resolve, it's fine to have it's expected. It's part of life. You're gonna have horrible things happen,
yeah,
but we have to communicate ways that have been shown to help resolve and get through those dark days. And then you have potentially a new volunteer force that's more prepared than we were. And now you have a stronger country as a result. So I'm all
yeah.
for sharing things, and I'm glad that you can do the same. So,
Thanks, man. Yeah,
yep. All right,
amazing.
folks, in Chief's honor, I have a fun song coming up here in the queue. And then after that, we'll talk again and just take a short break. Okay, stand by. Thanks again.
All right, get some.